Hello and welcome to Look for the Light, a podcast where we dive into the world of The Last of Us. I'm your host, Stuart Trainer, and I'm joined, as always, by someone who knows that when a storm is coming, you should head straight for the 7-Eleven filled with weed. It's Jess Sterling. Jess, how are you doing?
It's too real. It's too real. Listen, I don't understand what Maria's problem is. If we're living in a world where there's been an apocalypse, let the people have their weed, okay?
Mm-hmm. Especially on 420 weekend, right? Like, of all the messaging to get across. Like,
I just want to thank Craig Mazin and the whole team at The Last of Us for deciding to release this particular episode of The Last of Us, not on Easter Sunday, but on 420, because we all needed to be medicated to watch this episode.
Yeah, it was a bit of an intense one. And of course, we're not talking about the elephant in the room. But yeah, broad thoughts, Jess. Like, what was your takeaways from this?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't surprised to be emotionally impacted by I'm just gonna get out of here if you haven't seen the episode. This is your last and only warning. I knew I would feel just like immense grief and sadness over the loss of Joel. I guess what I wasn't quite expecting, we thought about this, Stuart. A lot of people surmised that this episode would be the Joel death episode. What I hadn't really considered was that this would also be like the episode that Jackson gets attacked. And so I spent probably half the episode with my hands on my face, just like torn up, because there was no relief, right? Like, generally, if you're going from one scene to another scene, you're getting some sort of like a respite from what's going on. But you're going from like one assault on Jackson, this like, it's not utopia, but it's about as close as you could get in this world.
In this world, it is. Yeah,
being completely decimated and destroyed and being afraid for our characters that live there, to then what's happening to Joel. So there's no break from any of it. And it was really intense, but really well done. I mean, I know, Stuart, you were someone who was very nervous about how they would adapt specifically the Joel stuff. So I want to know your broad thoughts on how they did it.
Yeah, I was really nervous beforehand, so much so that I stayed up late to watch this one live, because I don't know why I felt like I had more control over it, I guess, even though I didn't, because at least then I could like temper expectations of like how I have to explain it to people that have like an adverse reaction, and I have to go into almost like defensive mode, because I do kind of feel a bit of an allegiance for like the show, because I feel like they do take bold choices, and I often am defending those choices to people that are like, no, they should stick to the games, or I hate the games because like of reasons. It's like, no. But yeah, they absolutely knocked it out of the park. Like you said, it was just relentless in terms of the amount of anxiety it managed to build up. And I think it did it not only for first time viewers, or like first time people who are experiencing the story, but also for people who have played the games, because there is the anxiety that gets built up by knowing what's coming, but also having this ambiguity of everything going on in Jackson at the same time. You probably know, broadly speaking, that maybe the big players in the kind of like story elements are going to be safe, but still they're shaped by these things that are going on, and it has profound effects upon them. This is why this series is so fantastic, is because everything is purposeful. There's never really kind of like a throwaway, oh, we'll just throw some trauma onto this character because it makes sense for this scene. It is all about building people and characters up to a point, and everything here made total sense. I have been so glad that the broad reaction to it online has been so overwhelmingly positive, while also being sobbing because everyone is deeply affected by it. We haven't, at this point, we're recording this less than 24 hours since it's come out. It hasn't been like brigaded or review bombed or anything. It's actually sitting at a 9.5 on IMDb, which is the highest episode rating thus far. And I think that is absolutely truly reflective of the quality of this episode, of just how well orchestrated it is. It is a standout. I'm so
Yeah.
excited to really talk about it in depth, but also I am I have tissues within reach because I've watched this now 3 times today, and each and every time it has hit me harder than it had the time before because it's just you notice little things, little details, and that certain acting choices, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I think this is one that is not there's not so much like Easter eggs in terms of like hidden clues to stories or mysteries. It's not a mystery box show like that. But what it is that you get to see on a rewatch is these small actors' choices, writing choices of setups and themes and everything that you just begin to kind of like digest a little and get a little more flavor out of when you're going for a second or a third bite in my case. So yeah, I'm so incredibly excited to talk about this.
Yeah. 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 I mean, yeah. It's
Yeah.
also we're 6 minutes in. Mark Mylod is a god, okay?
Yeah.
Like this guy, the director, if you're unfamiliar with Mark Mylod, he has done one of the best and most notable episodes of Succession, one of my favorites. And he also did some work on Game of Thrones back in the
Big
day. So
blockbuster ones for them, yeah.
yeah, and he signed on to do this episode, and it's like, gosh, you couldn't have picked a better person to do this specific episode. So yeah, shouts to Mark Mylod for just being an icon, always.
Yeah. Okay, so before we dive into things proper, if you are new here, please make sure you're subscribed to Look for the Light wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want a more visual experience, we're also on YouTube at Look for the Light Pod there. We also would love to get your thoughts on the show, what your feedback perhaps might be. So do feel free to email it in at lookforthelightpodcast@gmail.com. And for any of the listening for the first time, don't worry. We're not going to spoil anything ahead. We're going to talk in detail about this episode, but this episode only for the most part. And then at the very end, we're going to focus on a more spoiler section, but we will flag that so you can listen in relative safety until that point, which will kind of like bring it all about.
Luckily, we don't have to worry about spoiling the big one anymore.
No,
This was the
that
big one.
honestly, yeah, this is the big relief. Like this has been the red wedding that has been looming over fans of the video games for so long. It does feel like a weight has been fully lifted and that we can talk about it freely. But
Mhm.
equally, there is that kind of still thing of, have you seen the episode yet? I nearly made that mistake earlier today when talking to friends. I was like, have you seen episode 2 yet? Okay, well, I'm not going to talk about it then. So let's just
I
not
will
do
say
that.
nothing.
But yes, spoilers will be respected and they will be observed. But unless there's anything else, Jess, are you ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
I don't know you. Don't go in there.
Stop it!
I'm telling you, go back. No! His brains are on the floor. You're lying.
So we open up with Abby walking through the hospital corridor. This, for fans of the game, is a very familiar scene with the alerts going off, the red lights. But this is a different take than what we've seen before. We get Abby, perhaps her subconscious, talking to herself. Jess, what was your thoughts when this appeared? Because this was entirely new, right?
Yeah, I originally when we first started seeing the red flashing lights in the hallway, I was like, "Oh my gosh, we're getting flashbacks with Abby. Like this is exciting." I was very excited. And then to realize it is a dream sequence. It mostly worked for me. Like I thought it was pretty effective in setting up who Abby is and what her emotional state is at the moment, what her, what her motives are. While still being vague enough to let the big reveal happen later in the episode of, it's, medium-sized reveal, I would say, that her dad was the surgeon, that he was the one that Joel killed, without even looking in his face, as we get like a nice little clip of. I mostly liked this. I hope that we're gonna get some more Abby flashbacks throughout the season. But I liked that this was kind of an establishing of why Abby is the way she is. At least like adding to that what we already kind of got from the first episode. I think we needed that this episode.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement, and I do hope that we get more, because I kind of feel like whether it's older Abby or whether it's like her subconscious, like just talking to her and almost telling her deep down that no, you shouldn't be reliving this. Like, that he's dead in there. Maybe it's even hindsight of just in that scene, because there's no way you're walking down that corridor with all these alarms going off and expecting everything to be peachy when you get in there, knowing full well where this trail of destruction goes towards. So maybe as an aspect of that. So I hope that we do get a little bit more, I guess, clarification on this. But I think as it stands, I think it's great to establish that this isn't just petty revenge. This is something a little deeper. This is, and not to say that like obviously going for revenge for someone killing your parent is petty, but it's more that this is something that is affecting her so much that she can't even get like she can't escape it even in like sleeping. Like she's tormented by it, and I think that was a great way of illustrating it, and especially herself saying to herself like don't go in there, like his brains are on the floor. Like that, it's so visceral to hear that. And I think a very classy choice not to show it and to rely on the gruesomeness of it all.
Yeah.
Because it is a tough scene.
Yeah. I like it more when I think about the fact that this is Abby trying to tell herself, stop reliving this. Like, stop going back to this moment. It's not good for you. And to have it be a nightmare, as someone who has dealt with like nightmares really affecting sleep patterns and kind of like your day to day, and oftentimes feeling like my former therapist would not like me saying this, but like often feeling like my brain is attacking me, like feeling like I am working against myself. I feel like that's what Abby's doing. She can't help but relive the most traumatic moment in her entire life, and very much a moment that she kind of frames her life around, right? There was before my dad was killed and after my dad was killed. And she uses that point as like a stopping point in her life, and she often revisits it, I imagine sometimes, not on purpose, while she's sleeping. And I love that like kind of her older self is looking back on this like very sweet summer child, if you will, of herself being like, don't do it. This will change your life, and not in a great way. I like that because I also think it makes Abby more real. She is not a killing machine. She is not the version of Joel that we saw in that hospital where she is going to mow down everything in her way. She's dead set on one goal for a very specific reason. And I like that I think it's the show's responsibility to have us understand what that reason is and not view her as just this awful villain, because she's not.
Oh, shit. It's a city, Abs. I thought it would be like a tent colony or something.
Oh, we knew they had lights.
Yeah, I thought they were from little generators like we used at the fob.
Nope. We got full fucking power lines.
Oh, well, isn't that great?
Power lines aren't a problem. Here are the problems. They've got 4 main gates, no other ins or outs, guard towers flanking each exit, mounted patrols, all heavily armed, overlapping routes.
And these guys are trained.
Yeah, they've got some vets down there, for sure.
Because when they awake, the Salt Lake crew find that they are very close to Jackson, and under the kind of like the daylight, they see that Jackson is massive and a task to try and take over. As they see that there are several gates, that there are patrols, they have like full on like pylons for electricity. Like this is not some rinky-dink little tent village that they have to try and get into. Like there are big surrounding walls, and this is a much bigger task than perhaps they anticipated. I thought the way in which they kind of conveyed that the crew are tired at this point, like you've got to imagine the journey because they're doing it in the height of winter by the like look of everything. So this has been tough on them, and they have been perhaps dragged here by the sheer will of force that is Abby and this journey. And
Yeah.
perhaps they're waning, or at least we certainly find out that they are waning based on what Owen says, right?
Yeah, they're really frustrated because Jackson is much larger than they anticipated in their patrols and electricity. They have dogs. Like, this is a huge operation. They don't even know where Joel is. Abby is still very dead set on going there, but Owen, kind of gets her to go on a 1 hour patrol. And while she's gone, he kind of says to the crew, my plan is to get her to abandon this because the only people that will die if we do this are us. Like we don't have the means with which to go in there. And it's really tough because Abby is a force of nature. Like you can't just say, Abby, this is a bad idea, and her say, yeah, okay, and then turn around. That's not going to happen. So Owen is trying to ruminate on how exactly are we going to convince Abby that this is a fruitless effort, that we just need to turn around and go back home. Certainly not going to be easy. I also like that within the Salt Lake crew, we get at least, I don't know, 3 different times they talk about, okay, no one else will get hurt, right? We're just going to hurt Joel. We're not going to hurt any innocent people. And while Abby agrees, gosh, again, I just called her just like this, like immovable object. Like she is an endless force. Anything that stands in her way will get mowed down. It doesn't matter what the rest of the crew are going to say, right? Like, and I think they know that. I think they keep saying it, hoping that if they say it enough, that Abby will be like, yes, of course, I swear.
Yeah. We live by a code now, don't we? Yeah.
That was
we
interesting,
have to
right? The
observe it.
code? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic. And I can't wait to really dive into that in spoiler section later on, because there's a lot to kind of like read into it. But it's funny that like the code is something that these people live by. And I think that you're right in that maybe they are kind of saying it over and over again, almost to manifest it, to kind of like seed this idea into Abby's like mind and to let it kind of bake and cook. I think the problem is that Abby has realized that she has aligned herself perhaps with some very kind of passive people who are going to forgive her. I think that she knows that it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission in this scenario, because she has the whole, well, he did kill my dad card to play, and so she'll always win the arguments, right?
Yeah.
And it's a tough one to really kind of thread. And I love the way in which Abby is the one that's like, oh, well, I'll go out and do the watch. And despite the cold battering her, the moment she does get out there, she just continues. She's like, nope, I'm here. I'm out of my depth. She's even carrying the rifle strangely because she's so not comfortable in this, but she just persists. I thought that was a great choice to show as well. I think that's probably going to garner a fair bit of criticism. It's like, oh, she's not even carrying a gun right, so like how can she like take out Joel? But I think this is all purposeful. This is all about building this image, not of someone who is a relentless killer, but someone who is just being driven by this sheer will of force to do what she needs to do, she believes, to bring her peace. I think some great choices going on there.
My shit with Joel is complicated. I know that. From the outside, it probably looks really bad. It has been really bad. But I'm still me, he's still Joel, and nothing's ever gonna change that. Ever. So you can all stop talking about us, worrying about us, and thinking about us. All right?
So you two hash it out. All right.
We then get ourselves back to Jackson with Ellie being woken up by Jesse. This is a fantastic scene because this is taken directly from the game. It's the opening scene that you play as Ellie. And this was so true to how the game was as well. Jesse, such a bro in how he handles it, right?
It's not okay how much I love Jesse. It's just not okay. Every scene he's in, I love him more. You're so right. It is pulled directly from the video game. I love the tiny touches that they add though. Jesse being even more playful when he like
Mhm.
pokes his head in past the door and he's like, it's kind of messed up though what you did. Like, it's kind of
Yeah,
messed
there's
up.
much more of a grin. I think video game Jesse is maybe there's a tinge of truth to it, maybe. But
Yeah.
yeah, young Mazzino here is having an absolute ball and taking the piss. Like,
So good. He's so good. And yeah, he's kind of giving Ellie the download on what's going on. She talked about these stalkers and it's got the whole town in a buzz because apparently there's a pile of infected that were found underneath like other frozen infected, basically insulating them, hibernating them, keeping them alive, question mark. And so the whole town is kind of a buzz, and we're seeing that happening. We're seeing a buzz of activity happening in Jackson. And it's really, what do you think of this, Stuart? Certainly this is something we've not encountered before. Infected that are hiding underneath other infected. Does this combined with the stalkers from last episode, are we seeing just higher intelligence infected than we've seen before?
I think it's a combination of two things. I think it is perhaps not necessarily a higher intelligence. I think there's something very primal about the stalkers. In that it's like if you think about it from like a biological standpoint of just like how certain like insects or birds have plumages that are certain colors that mimic like predators or something to scare off like other predators or things like that, is that comes about from like a natural evolution of things. And I think as well, like the adding a bit of lore here to explain what happens seasonally to the infected is fantastic, because we got the preamble in season 1 where they talked about, well, okay, well, what if one of the fungi were to like adapt and evolve to higher climates, like kind of talking about climate change. Okay, that's fantastic and obviously works at higher climates. What happens in the winter when it gets freezing cold, especially in a place like Jackson, which is purposefully remote, probably is a way of like slowing this down, and also being in a cold climate as well, probably because infected probably thrive in warmer climates. I did a bit of looking into it because like, and I will say this is not substantial research by any means. It was a quick Google search, but it does seem that like mycelium and mushrooms and things, they do hibernate in a sense of like they will kind of revert and go to where things are warmer. And so I don't think it's necessarily an intelligence. I think it's just more that, well, there is a layer of dead infected and things are warmer down there. I'm going to go to where it's warm and I'm going to wait until I'm going to conserve whatever little energy there is until I get a confirmation of, well, that's where the prey is and I'm going to go to it. And I think that's probably what is been
That
established.
makes sense. It's like an evolutionary thing, which is what kind of allowed all of this to take place in the first point, right? Like that's how all of this happened, is evolution. And that makes so much sense. And it obviously is terrifying because, as Jesse says, there could be thousands we don't know.
Yeah.
And it looks like thousands later. And I think something that was really surprising to me, Stuart, was getting this scene where they talk about Joel. Ellie wants to patrol with Joel today. She is instead going to patrol with Jesse. Joel has already left with Dina. But of course, Jesse is poking and prodding and what's going on? You and Joel haven't been on the best of terms. And Ellie has had enough. She snaps. She says, you could stop talking about us, worrying about us, and thinking about us. Like, we'll still always be Joel and Ellie, and I want to do like a daddy, bring your daughter to work day or whatever the heck. What did you think about this scene, Stuart? Because certainly, it's not a spoiler to say this is not something from the video game. This is entirely new content we're getting.
No, this is. And I think it's a great way of bringing a resolution to, obviously, last time we saw Joel and Ellie together, Ellie was storming past Joel on the porch and like left that whole argument unresolved. So perhaps sleeping on it, Ellie feels a little bit better, a bit more positive about the kind of situation, or perhaps just has like an understanding that other people don't. Like maybe they don't need the resolution. Maybe Ellie is content to have things be hostile and that just be how their relationship is, because Ellie perhaps knows that that's how their relationship has to be because of this lie that has been there the whole time. I think it's great because it kind of, I guess, stops a lot of speculation around the whole conversation, and kind of, I guess, draws a line under it for now. But also, like, I guess it's like it just illustrates that I think Ellie is so over small town gossip. Like, I don't think it'd be the kind of thing that Ellie would be
Yes.
there for at all, right?
I'm with you 1000%. Ellie just wants, get off my back. Stop asking me about Joel. I just want to do my job. And I think every time someone asks her about Joel, or like in the first episode says, oh, he pulled his punch because he doesn't want to deal with Joel, I think Ellie gets more and more frustrated because Ellie just wants to be taken seriously. Ellie wants to be an adult. Like any, what is she, 19? Like any 19-year-old, she wants to be treated like an adult and not have to constantly deal with people bringing up Joel to her. So I could totally understand her being very, plus she's hungover, like she's very frustrated. I totally get this. And yeah, finding out like, oh, okay, so not only am I not going to get to patrol with Joel, but now he's off with Dina today instead. Not exactly what you want to hear. I'm never going to be sad to go on patrol with Jesse, but Ellie's not so keen.
You're like, oh no, there's a blizzard, Jesse. You'll have to hold me in your big strong
hold
arms.
me tighter. Oh no. Yeah, that's the downside of living in Jackson, where everything is cold at the moment, is they got to bundle up and we can't see them guns that Jesse has going on.
You want to remind me next week how I made y'all go through all this crap for no reason? Nothing will make me happier. But you know the drill. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. Now half y'all's hungover and want me to shut up, but I'm gonna go through this anyway, because it's been a minute. If you see flares, if you hear bells, stop what you're doing, you follow the plan. What's the plan? Vanessa, what's the plan?
We go to the forest.
To the forest? Do not go to the forest, sweetheart. You're such a bad idea.
We do find out that Jesse certainly has guns, as does most of Jackson, as they are being prepared for what to do in an emergency, as that hunch that Maria expressed last episode has come true. We find that from what Jesse said to Ellie in the scene before is that, well, stuff is going down and they need to be more prepared than what they are at the moment. So Tommy's giving a little speech out to the kind of group. We don't go to the forest though, right, Jess? We don't.
Love the little kid. That was great, right? Like, I know hey, listen, I don't need, if we're looking at Survivor, I don't need Jeff going into the audience and being like, what does a kid think? Like, I never need that. I'm generally like not here for child actors. I thought this humanized Tommy in such a big way. I mean, we already were pretty on board with Tommy as a character, but getting to see him be, and again, worth pointing out, Maria, who is seemingly like in charge of the town, is not the one making this speech. Tommy is the one making this speech.
Well,
and
they're a council. I think it's meant to be
that's
spread,
right.
like shared and like spread, right?
Yeah, that's right. They are a council. And getting him to be, asking the kid, oh, we're going to go to the forest. No. Old and young ones in the basements to shelter in place. Everyone else gets up to the rooftops with their guns, stay off of the main street if there's a breach. Like, they're organized. And this makes sense, Stuart, because we've only, like, this is 5 years later since Ellie and Joel arrived. Obviously, they were even organized even before that. So they've had plenty of time to think and prepare for what happens if there's a horde of infected, what happens if there's a horde of raiders. Like, they have preparations in place for exactly this sort of a scenario, which is really great to see. And especially great to see Tommy being the one kind of leading the charge and getting everyone, on point.
Yeah, he's become, I think, everything that he wanted to be. Like, all of the aspirations that Joel used to admonish him for, like, he's a hero to these people. Like, he's the organizer. He's the one that's like they're looking to for, I guess, strategy of like what to do when like shit does hit the fan. I particularly love this scene because they refer to anyone who needs to seek shelter as just old and young. Like, it's not women and kids.
Yes.
Like,
I thought the same thing. Yes.
Because it's like you can be female and like protect where you live.
And we've seen them doing that, right? Like we've seen the patrols go out, and they're not all men. Like there are plenty of non-binary women, whomever, in these patrols. I loved that they said old and young and not women and children, first in the life raft, a la like a Titanic, right?
Yeah. And I think that was like a great way of kind of like illustrating that. And also it being like a kind of like self-prescriptive in the sense of like, well, I'm old to seek shelter. But if you do feel like able and like to help, then, oh, well, I'm not that old. Like, so I can like help. I felt like that. It empowered the people of Jackson, I think, which was really good. And it all lends itself to this whole feeling of like the commune-like system that they have going on here of just like, we're all going to pitch in, we're all going to help, and we're all going to do it. Just don't ever follow that little kid Vanessa's guidance, I think, which is kind of the right thing. But Maria, like kind of the stalwart kind of like leader as well, off to the side, is just listening in, kind of quite proud of Tommy, and then takes over to Seth, and we get the apology that is so sorely owed. It's a shame that he had to give it because he shouldn't have done what he did, and it's by his own kind of statement, shouldn't have thought it either.
I love Ellie calling him out. And saying like, oh yeah, I'm sure people, say stuff all the time that they never thought before. Like, my one, again, this is the tiniest of nits to pick. I'm really sad we didn't get the bigot sandwich line.
Yeah,
like
same.
I just thought it was so funny in the game. And again, it's unnecessary, but like the game lover in me really just wanted to hear Ellie say bigot sandwich.
I think, I mean, I wish that was in there as well. I wonder if it is more to appeal to a wider audience, because of course politics is so inflamed at the moment. And I think if Ellie was throwing around the term bigot for what many are going to probably apologize away in that, oh, he was drunk, oh, he shouldn't have said it kind of thing, but like he shouldn't have thought it. Like he shouldn't be holding these kind of prejudiced thoughts. And so quite rightly, like Ellie should be calling it out. And I think that if she were to throw out the term bigot, that people would jump on it as another point of criticism. And I think this is their way of kind of like finding a nuanced way to get the point across, but not necessarily to throw more stones in the whole situation. And I think it also shows a bit more maturity on Ellie's side, in that she's just like, well, I will go through the process of listening to this apology because Maria is asking me to. Like, if it wasn't for Maria, Ellie wouldn't be there at all. And I don't have to say thank you. I don't have to acknowledge it. I can just be like, okay, and go. Incredible. I was glad that the scene went down, but I mean, it would have been nice to have called the homophobe a bigot, because he was.
Yes.
Up here! I'm coming! You good? Hey, kid!
Yeah, I'm good.
Any bites? Let's go. Now!
Abby, on her patrol, suffering, and she sees Joel and Dina just wandering about doing the patrol. It is a bit kind of coincident kind of like situation, but I think this is explained away quite well. Like, they went out on their patrols. Joel and Dina have that kind of relationship. I think perhaps Dina might be doing it in a way of wanting to heal wounds, because maybe Dina feels a sense of responsibility for the argument that went down the night before. So maybe this is Dina being quite proactive in kind of like bridge building, not knowing perhaps if there was any kind of conversation between them or any kind of follow-up the previous night. And so it makes sense for them to be out there. But Abby just spots them and goes hunting immediately.
Yeah.
What did you think about that, Jess?
This makes sense. This makes sense that Abby would just do this. I think she feels like she has more invested in this than anyone else, as she does. And she's not going to let this opportunity go to waste. She's going to ambush this patrol. And yeah, like you said, sure, we could say this is very coincidental and whatever. but I think that's on purpose. Like it is a great strike of luck that Abby happens across these two, just as in, it's a little different in the video game, but there's luck involved. She happens upon them, and in a very dire situations, even more dire situation in the show, in terms of like being able to catch them off guard. And 5 years ago, Joel isn't immediately going with some stranger to some place he's not aware of, never go to a second location sort of a thing.
Yes.
He's not doing that. In this specific situation, in these circumstances, that's exactly what's going to happen. So there's a lot of luck involved. I don't think that's necessarily a negative thing. Sometimes, circumstances change due to luck. And yeah, having her run and set off after them made all the sense in the world. A little, again, like I said, a little different than the video game in terms of like how she comes upon them. But I kind of like that she's the catalyst, the impetus for all this other stuff happening with the horde of infected and Jackson.
Yeah. Like bringing about the kind of like the chaos is just I'm having Abby be the cause there. I mean, again, it breeds this whole thing of like, I guess, resentment going forward for them as a group generally. But the thing that I loved as well is that not only do we get Abby kind of like spotting it, seeing her opportunity and going after it almost immediately, but we then get Ellie and Jesse on patrol because Joel and Dina are together, and we get a flip of what happens in the game because Ellie and Dina are on patrol in the game when this goes down, but they come across a 7-Eleven chock full of weed where Eugene had found apparently. What do you think about this?
This is very different. I was hoping, we had kind of guessed and we knew that Dina and Joel would probably be the two on patrol together. And so that obviously meant the really wonderful scene that we get between Dina and Ellie in Eugene's kind of weed haven would probably be cut. I was happy that we still got the weed haven, just under slightly different circumstances. And I actually kind of like what they're seeding in here, where Ellie comes across the Firefly pendant that was Eugene's. She finds out Eugene was a Firefly. And then we get kind of her and Jesse talking about, Joel having to put him down and how Eugene was in the Vietnam War. And after all of that killing and then being a Firefly, he was just kind of done with it. I like the conversation that we had between Jesse and Ellie because they are very different, right? Like Ellie even says, like, we know you're going to be the next leader. You're not yet. So like, let me steal all the weed I want. I think, I don't know. It's different. Again, this isn't a spoiler for the video. This isn't really a spoiler at all in terms of what's going to happen in the show. But in the video game, it's Tommy and Joel on patrol and Dina and Ellie on patrol. Jesse wasn't even involved. We'll obviously talk about the Dina of it all a little bit later, but what were your thoughts on like swapping Tommy out for Jesse in terms of who's even involved in all of this?
I think it makes so much more sense, like obviously with the set piece going on in Jackson, that Tommy is not there. Like otherwise that would be, I mean, other than Maria and Benji, like what other investment would there really be in terms of following that? So like you have to have Tommy there to like ground that. But I think what it builds is furthering the relationship between Ellie and Jesse. Because what with having Ellie and Dina going on patrol in the last episode, I thought that we weren't going to get like Ellie and Jesse having much of a conversation, like the pick up in the morning, like going on patrol kind of like situation. So I thought that was a great way of like bridging that gap. But then also having Ellie and Jesse talking in 7-Eleven, we then got like things getting further built up. I think rather than having to discover that Eugene was a Firefly through exclusively environmental kind of clues, like in the game you get a Polaroid of Tommy and Eugene together. Decked out in like Firefly gear, as well as I think you get the tags as well. But you also get the context of Eugene, like you get a little bit of that from Jesse because Jesse has been on patrol with Eugene. And so Jesse's able to say, well, I think he was a Vietnam vet. And so it explains perhaps, firstly, the framing of it, because you can see why someone perhaps who had gone to Vietnam would be very anti-establishment, anti-government, which explains the Firefly aspect. And I think also being someone very kind of perhaps disenfranchised with the world and everything, and that time frame explains the weed as well, and explains Gale, I guess, as well. Because they seem very like counterculture couple. I think I can absolutely see them on marches together back in the day, and I think it was just a great way of just adding some more richness. But and again, any excuse for like Joel and Dina to have more time together as well. Not that we really got to see much of that in this episode, but I like the idea of them two having a strong relationship and them two like having a bond, whether we see it on screen or not. But just knowing that they are on patrol together is a great choice, I think.
Totally agree. And kind of having Abby set off what will be just this relentless, never-ending action tense stuff for the rest of the episode here is incredible, because it's again fairly close to the video game, where she comes across this kind of just bunch of infected bodies just everywhere, seemingly frozen. Turns out it seems like it's some sort, like these aren't okay, let me get clarification from you, Stuart. I've watched the episode twice. You've seen it one more time than me, and I want to make sure I'm getting the details right here. The group of infected Abby comes across, they are frozen in a lake, correct?
I think it's not necessarily. I think it's just like a large pile up of snow. I think they're buried under there. I don't think it's a lake.
Because I thought there were two separate hordes of infected. I thought there was the hibernating horde that was talked about by Jesse earlier, and we see them later on, right? Like they get kind of like summoned by the spores in the pipes. The disturbance of the spores in the pipes.
Yeah.
And then there's the second group that Abby,
she slips down the kind of like hill onto and like falls into. I mean, it could very well be a lake. I think there's too much snow to really like kind of judge. There is a big opening with like the tree line, which would make sense for it to be a lake, and perhaps there is like on the ice and kind of under there. But I think there's just such a buildup of snow that I think it's difficult to like judge whether it's a lake or not specifically. But it certainly is horrific the way she kind of like rolls down there. And there are all these just limbs poking out. And that one that almost looks as if it's turning to face her, but it's not. It's just the top layer of insulation of like dead infected. And the real threat is actually what's underneath. And when they start sinking, gosh, that's just horror 101, right? That was just so good.
This was a horror movie. This was a horror movie. Like, especially the part where we get the chain link fence moment that is in the video game, where she's just like, it is a claustrophobic nightmare. Like, this was hard for me to watch. Like, watching the infected's like hand literally like chopping in half as it's trying to reach through the chain link fence. Again, if I'm picking knits, and it's the tiniest of knits to pick, I just wanted one to pull off her hat because it happens. It's so dumb. Again, if these are my problems, like, again, small potatoes, nothing. The teeniest to tiniest potatoes you've ever seen.
That shows that like we're spoilt as fans of the game, like in what we're getting here. We're like, oh, the beanie doesn't get pulled off. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's so stupid.
It's so faithful to that whole sequence. The claustrophobia that you feel when they push in that gate, like you said, the hand going through the chain link fence, like through, and it like pushing, and it shows again this. Much like Abby with her relentless pursuit of this journey, it's mirrored with the cordyceps, in that they are relentless with their pursuit of spreading this infection and its own survival. Because this is another thing that we often like kind of forget. They're not just mindless zombies. This is a force of nature that is trying to endure and survive. Like its whole thing is about like kind of growing, spreading to maintain survivability. That's why it adapted to climate change. And yeah, to go push through that fence and it to go between the fingers. Oh, it gave me the heebie-jeebies, but it's such a good choice, I think, of like how to instill in the viewer that there's no person in there. There's something driving that, because physically it's willing to destroy itself in the pursuit of this. It's so rough, so
Yeah.
rough.
Yeah, and what makes it worse, better, it makes me feel worse, but it's a better show decision. I think is having Tommy go in and say to Amy, who's kind of like the radio operator, because Joel and Dina haven't responded. Every 10 seconds, you call out to them every 10 seconds and try to get them on the radio, because Ellie and Jesse got the message to shelter in place. They're doing so, but they have not heard from Dina and Joel. And this scares Tommy so much that he is planning to leave. Like, he is gearing up to go out there. And it just hurts that much more that, like, they're not able to get in touch with Joel and Dina. If they had just gotten in touch with them, we could have stopped all of this. If Tommy had just been able to get out there before they get this mob, obviously Jackson probably falls without Tommy, but Joel would probably maybe be alive, right? Like, that hurts so much more, Stuart, seeing all of that, seeing, like, them trying to call back Joel and Dina is just a gut punch.
It would have been, yeah. Like, if Tommy was able to, like, be in there as well, like, I think that would have been, like, even tougher. Again, I think they'd be, like, throwing too much on. So, like, I like the way in which they orchestrated everyone to be where they are, and the reasonings as to why people are where they are, because but also not betraying, like, Tommy's instinctive, like, kind of like, this is bad and I need to go out and get him. I thought that was a great way of doing it. What I want to circle back to, though, is obviously after the Horde is chasing after Abby, we get Joel saving Abby. And this is, again, very kind of like initially faithful to the game. But then what we do find is that Dina is there with Joel. And Dina is the one to give up Joel's name. And she does so without knowing that there is a third party there, which I think is so good for covering, again, another kind of criticism from fans is that Joel just gives his name, like, freely. Admittedly, Tommy kind of sets it up, but, like, Joel, who knows better than this, does it, and it's Dina is the one that gives it up, and I think that is heartbreaking, because I think it's another aspect of guilt towards this whole journey. It's more layering.
Yeah. I never criticized the game for that particular thing, because I viewed it as Joel has now spent 5 years in a community where he hasn't necessarily had to have his guard up in the way that he did when they were traveling cross country, when he was, before the time of Boston. So he's had time to kind of change in that way and maybe loosen up a bit in ways that could get him hurt. But I agree with you. I like that it was Dina, and that she didn't do it knowing Abby was there. So she's less like, there can be less criticism thrown on her for doing it. And on top of that, Stuart, Dina is the one who says, who is this girl and where is she from? Like, who are you? Right? She's very skeptical. She wants to know this information. There just isn't time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I also like that Abby knows who they are prior to the rest of the group of Salt Lake City folks knowing, the WLF, before they know. Abby knows, and she's able to use this and use everything that's going on around them to her benefit. So I like that we're both giving agency to Abby in terms of the manipulation and the ability to kind of corner these two who are in a really difficult predicament. And also knowing Dina has all of these thoughts and feelings, and she's questioning Abby, and then it turns out like the elements are so bad. Dina is like on the verge of getting frostbite on her hand by the time they even arrive to the lodge, right? Like, these are scary circumstances. It's just the worst. It's a series of unfortunate events. You have like the Horde coming down on Jackson, this massive blizzard happening outside. So comms are down, they can't get in touch with anybody. On top of that, they have this exterior threat, which they're not even concerned with at the moment, because they're concerned with the threats that they can see and know are bad, which are the storm and the Horde of infected. It's all brilliant. It's all very difficult. And they did make some changes from the game, but I don't mind any of these particular changes. I think they make sense.
Yeah, I think everything is kind of like, everything's coming together so so well.
Mhm.
And we find that after the radio transmission comes through, that Joel and Dina haven't checked in. Get Ellie and Jesse going, like kind of rushing out for them, going in protective mode. We get the breaking of the pipe. We see the tendrils of mycelium growing and recoiling when the roots are pulled away, which was just, again, horrific. And we cut to this horde pursuing Joel, Abby, and Dina, who are fleeing up the mountain. And as like people are rushing to Tommy, we get the guard on watch who's looking through the binoculars, and we see probably the most scary thing that you can probably see if you're on that watchtower, of just a horde of hundreds, if not thousands, of infected rushing towards your settlement, because it knows exactly where you are because of the pipes, and it knows.
Bell! Bell! Hit the bell! They're coming!
Raiders are infected!
Infected! 5 minutes out!
Follow the plan. I'll take the roofs. You take Main Street. Go!
This was the most Game of Thrones like
White
scene
Walker on
ever.
the wall. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, this is where Mark Mylod comes into his own. This is why he was probably selected exactly for this. It was so well done. I was on the edge of my seat, and this was scary as hell. I know that you were the same, right, Jess?
I couldn't handle it. Like I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like it's and just think about the fact that they set things up in season 1 to allow this to happen in season 2 in ways that were different from the video game, where you step on a tendril a mile away and there's this network system of communications with these mycelial threads that communicate and say, "Come here. There are people here. There is movement here." It is terrifying. And to see them coming for Jackson, just this, again, like we've said, this utopia, and coming directly for it, like my heart just broke, because I already know what's going to come up. I already know what's happening later in the episode. So I guess I wasn't anticipating being heartbroken at this early on, and being scared for not just Tommy and Maria, because obviously those are kind of the characters that we care about that are still in Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
It's more so just the promise of what Jackson is and can be. And the fact that like so many people, we see a person going underground with like a newborn baby. Like, the idea that these people could be hurt while trying to defend their place of their home is really hard to watch. And watching the infected kind of turn, right? Like we see these like two mobs converging towards Jackson and kind of leaving Joel and Dina and Abby and instead pursuing the town. On one hand, you're like, well, good, they're not going after Joel and Dina. But the other hand, like, oh my God, oh no, an even bigger horde is now heading for Jackson. It's terrifying. And Stuart, the bloater that changed everything. This is another question I actually have for you, again, because you've seen the episode 3 times and I've only seen it twice. Did you interpret that? It seems like at a certain point, after they've kind of assaulted all of the infected with these like makeshift oil barrel bombs, right? They're like rolling them off, poking holes in them, and then
the little
throwing
slide
fire
that
at them.
bounces, so they kind of
So
like
great.
get a lift. Yeah, so good. Yeah.
After that all happens, and there's just like kind of a wall of fire to help with staving off the infected. I don't know if it was the bloater leading them that way, or if the infected got more intelligent. Like it seems like they kind of turned and were instead moving towards a different section to breach. Like, did you read it that way? It seemed like they turned away from that spot.
Yeah, I got the impression, because it's strange, because the bloater's the one that breaches the wall.
Right.
But they head towards it but they didn't seem to be following the bloater. I think the bloater is following the horde that is headed in that direction. And I wonder if it's just that they're fleeing the fire. I think it could just be that.
I thought it was maybe that. The other thought I had was like, is it exactly where the pipe is? Like, I don't think so. I don't think they were heading specifically towards that pipe, but maybe. I agree with you. I thought it was like an evolutionary aversion to fire. Like, oh, this is hot. Go away from hot stuff. Not necessarily intelligence, but like you said, evolution.
Yeah, especially playing the game and knowing that fire is your biggest ally when it comes to fighting bloaters. It's like the thing that they're most vulnerable to. Like you can certainly like fill it full of bullets and shells and whatnot, but fire is going to be
Molotov cocktails plus a fire gun.
Yes,
that's what you need.
But then I again this perhaps lends itself to this argument that perhaps the infected are getting more smart because maybe it did find a point of vulnerability and headed towards it. There's a question of whether or not, because in the stage of the infection at this point, like the bloaters should be blind because of they become clickers and they evolve into bloaters. So the whole directional thing of like looking to Maria when Maria is shooting towards it. I'm not sure if that's just reaction of like where the bullet point entries are coming from or something, or how it knows to head in that direction. I think perhaps there's a thing of just this isn't here for people on a podcast to dive into this much detail on. Maybe they might come to explain it, and maybe it's like a scene that got cut or something to kind of make things just flow a bit easier. But it certainly does seem to be a bit of a leap into how it knew. I think that
I almost thought the bloater was gonna do like a spore bomb, like they do in the game, like throw a spore bomb at Maria. But again, this is and maybe it's just for the emotionality of the scene where we have Tommy is shooting at the bloater, so it's going after Tommy. So Maria shoots at the bloater to try to save Tommy, and then it turns towards Maria, and then Tommy goes in with the gun again and is like yelling and trying to get its attention, right? Like all of those things are really impactful in terms of the emotionality. But my God, the scene with Tommy and that bloater and like him running out of fuel, so relatable to anyone who's played the video game where you're just like, please just die. But whoever that person was underneath the bloater costume in this scene, I have to give them so much credit. The ability for them to look menacing while not being able to like see their eyes or anything when he's hitting the bloater with the fire and it is just continuing. It almost looks like it's like, ooh, it looks like it gets even like more angry. And I'm like, how is this person doing this? Like just the posture. I don't know. It was incredible. That scene was absolutely stellar.
Yeah, I think that must have been like a blend of, I think it is CG, the bloater one, we're at least getting the close-up shots of the fire, like hitting it and things like that. But I'm assuming it's like mocap because there's certainly a bit more of like, I guess more human-like movement to this,
right?
Because they CG'd the bloater in the last one, although they did have prosthetics and they went down that route, but they ended up CGing it in hindsight because it didn't look quite to the effect that they kind of wanted. I loved the fact that they also did a bit of a misdirect here in that they set up the real trope of like Tommy cowering down on the ground, out of ammo, about to like resign himself to like death, and for it to be a tight shot on the bloater. You just think because previously you'd seen Maria running on the rooftops and getting out of dodge, and last we saw her, she was running down a flight of stairs down. So of course they're setting you up for this expectation that Maria's going to come by and Trinity from the Matrix like shot right to the head, but it doesn't. It's subverted that expectation, and it's showed that the fire is effective, and it was just taking its time to really burn through and to slow this thing down. As a game player, I really love that because there is sometimes these encounters with bloaters where you do kind of go, "Oh, it's over! Oh, thank God!" It's like sense of relief, and it almost feels, I guess, a little anticlimactic in the sense that there isn't this big kind of like final shot. It is this like, I guess, just a continuation of everything.
Yeah.
But the big finish is you just going, oh gosh, thank God that's over.
Yes.
Like that, right?
It's really true to the game. And it was a really fun scene. Like it was very action packed, really, it just incredible. And then we have Maria like letting all the dogs out, which in the who let the dogs out? The answer is Maria. The in the video game, it's much more the WLF are more dog heavy. I think it makes sense that Jackson would have dogs. As I find it very difficult to watch dogs in media when it comes to like attacking and is a dog gonna die? But I it's effective. It makes sense. I didn't hate it.
It's a continuation of what we had established last season in that they had the sniffer dogs to smell the infected on Joel and Ellie.
Right.
Not that effective if it didn't catch it on Ellie, but they are kind of being used as tools. It's not the most humane thing because obviously it's breeding them for a situation where they're going to be kind of going into violence quite often. But I mean, they were incredibly effective, and I also kind of like that they weren't the front line. They were there to pick up the pieces. It was almost like kind of, okay, well, we've done the heavy lifting. They can now pick off the kind of like stragglers, which again shows perhaps a more moral choice here, maybe a tactical one, perhaps as well. But there's a case to be made, I think, in either camp.
Fireflies?
Used to be. Haven't you heard? There are no more fireflies. They're all gone.
We then get to the lodge. We've got the Salt Lake crew out searching for Abby, and Joel and Dina arrive on horses, and Dina's looking in a bad way, really struggling with this cold, like trembling, doesn't even look up. Joel has to like usher her in. This is where everything starts.
I
don't even know how to tackle this.
Abby saying, "Oh, her name is Dina, ... and his name ... is Joel." And I specifically remember playing the video game, and that the moment that Joel says, "My name is Joel," and not I didn't know at the time what was coming up, and just having all the characters kind of like make eye contact, and that happening on the show, I was immediately like, that was it. Like that was the moment of like, oh no, it's coming, and it's they immediately get in together. We're gonna knock Dina out for an hour. And it's like, I mean, good, I guess. I don't want Dina to witness this. And they're gonna, medically induce. I don't know what it's called, like knocked out. I don't know what they put into her. But we're knocking her out for an hour. Well, at least she won't have to witness what we all know is coming. And then Abby goes into this like line of interrogation, right? Like if you better tell the truth, and if you do, we'll let Dina live. And is it Mel, I think, who's like, wait, I thought we weren't. And she's like, shut up. I don't mean to laugh. It's just it's within Mel's character to be like, wait a minute, no, you said we wouldn't hurt anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, Mel's the medic. I think that Mel has these instincts of like life is to be protected, not threatened, for as bargaining chip, whereas Abby is willing to do so because she needs to get the answers, really. Although she knows them, I think it's more the confirmation of everything. I thought I'm a bit in two minds on the whole putting Dina to sleep thing, because on the one hand, it's a little convenient that they happen to have the right thing to put her to sleep. I mean, Mel is a medic, so Mel would have things like that. I guess perhaps she has it just on the off chance that something bad happens and she has to put someone under. Well, maybe they have to stitch them up, because there are some real horrors that they encounter. I think Mel is very much aware of that. They've had 5 years in the militia, as Abby is divulged as well. So like a war medic, potentially. So there is like kind of that, which explains that away. I certainly prefer this to the trope that I absolutely hate in media, which is clogging someone over the head and knocking them out.
It can't be easy. That cannot be easy to hit someone hard enough to make them go unconscious,
It happens with Tommy in the game. Tommy at least takes several blows to the head and seems to be quite damaged by it as well.
Yeah.
But I kind of prefer it. But again, I don't know. I don't want Dina to suffer. So I don't want this to be the case. But like, perhaps would have liked her be like, I don't know, handcuffed in the next room or something like that. And like maybe hearing her screaming in the distance would have added to this film. Not that it needed to be ramped up any more than what it was, but I think maybe that could have been approached a little bit better. But the look as Abby reveals the name and just that knowing look between Owen, who is and Mel and Nora, who are like, oh gosh, this whole situation changes now, and we're now doing this. And Manny, the bro to Abby that he is, immediately grabs Dina, has her threatened with a gun, and Dina is in no position to defend herself. She's frostbitten, she's hurting, but her instinctive thing is Joel is on the radio. It's just Joel. Like instinctively, just kind of like calls out for help to warn. This was tough and a great way to set up that there is conflict within this group as to what is about to go down.
Yeah.
But it all plays out.
Yeah. I think I totally agree with you. I felt like the reaction from the Salt Lake crew was shock, but also a little bit of like horror. Like, wow, we actually are going to have to go through this now. Like, before it was a question, will we even find Joel? Like, will we be able to get to him? Now he is here. Now is the time. Like you said, Manny is the first one to act, and Abby grabs. And this moment I remember in the video game was so shocking to me. Because it was confirmation that Joel is not getting out of this alive, was the shotgun to the knee. Like, just immediately blows his knee out and demands Mel tourniquet him. This is what we're doing now. Like, it's not just that you blow his knee off, but you're tourniqueting him just to make him live longer so you can torture him. Like, it is so brutal. And Abby then, gets down on the floor, gets right in his face and talks about, oh, there were 18 soldiers and one doctor. You remember that doctor? He was an unarmed doctor and you shot him in the head. That was my dad. I guess you probably already figured that. The nurses said you barely even looked at him when you pulled the trigger. And then you just walked right past his body out the door. But I looked at him. I saw him. I was 19. I've been in the militia for 5 years now. Like, it is, I don't know. I hear and I understand the criticisms of Caitlin Devers doesn't look like the Abby from the video game. She's not as tall. She's not as built. She's not as muscly. Whatever, right? Like, I understand that because there is a physical presence to Abby that is difficult to embody if you do not have that body type. So I get that criticism, but I feel like the moment that Caitlin Devers starts this monologue, I'm kind of locked in. I'm locked in on her as Abby because it's less about the physicality of Abby and more about the presence. And she's very like aggressive, but like emotional in the same way that Abby from the video game was, right? Like the moment we get that like single tear after she looks at the golf clubs and she just like angrily wipes it away, that's who Abby is. So I understand the criticism around like the casting choice, but I do think that she was able to embody Abby in the way that people were hoping for in this scene. But I don't know, Stuart, what are your thoughts on this casting choice now that we've seen like the scene,
Caitlin Dever is a fucking superstar. Just an absolute superstar of an actress. She brought about a cockiness with an unassuredness, a bravado, and this sense of vulnerability, despite being in the strongest position that she could have been for a scenario that's played out in her mind time and time again. And I saw every single aspect of that in her face. Does it matter that she doesn't have big arms? I don't. Her physicality is a game mechanic. The point of Abby's physicality is to mimic playing a strong character, because in the first game you play as Joel, and in the second game for scenes you play as Abby. The physicality is not what kills Joel. It's her pursuit of him. It's her relentlessness that kills Joel. Yes, she swings a golf club in the game, and in this one she stabs, but she does brutally beat Joel. We're talking about a 60-year-old man who's taken a shotgun shell to the knee and has been hit over and over again with a golf club to a knee. Do not tell me, like, I've seen a couple of things online already today from people saying it's outrageous because why didn't Joel just fight back? Joel had resigned to the situation. He almost accepted it. He tells her to shut the fuck up and get it over with. Like, he knows he can't get out of this.
And what's he gonna do? If he fights back, they're gonna kill Dina. Like, truly. Like, he knows he's in a losing situation, so his mode is to get out of it without harming anyone else, because he is taking responsibility in kind of taking responsibility for what he did. You know, like he can't fight back. Like, what's if they're gonna overpower him? They have guns on him. Like, that's such a dumb argument. And like you said, literally blew off his entire knee. Like, I'm with you, and I think that's such a solid point of it is not Abby's physicality that kills him. Like, it is just she is relentless. And that is what kills him. It is the fact that she didn't give up on the pursuit of him after 5 freaking years. Like, that is what kills him. I think where I'm interested to see, obviously it's difficult to say now because we're only in episode 2 of the full season, but this code that she talks about, this is different from the game. There was never any like mention of a code, I don't think. And where she says, like, we don't kill people that can't defend themselves. Right now, that's you. But I am going to kill you because it doesn't matter if you have a code like me or you're a lawless piece of shit like you. There are some things everyone agrees are just fucking wrong. And, like, he agrees, right? Like, Joel agrees. Like, yeah, what he did was really bad. And she wants to, like, revel in the torture. She wanders over to the golf clubs. She's like taking a second to like pick out a golf club. And like you said, he just wants to get it over with. But especially this particular line, Stuart, in my opinion, this is a line they had to have in here. They couldn't choose to omit it. You stupid old man, you don't get to rush this, right? And like in the video game, I'm fairly certain, correct me if I'm wrong, this is when she whacks him over the head with the golf club and we go to a different scene. We like completely leave that scene. I love this. I don't mind that instead we get a smash to the knee. In my opinion, that's just like, nah, I'm going to hit you in the knee because 1, I know it's going to hurt because I just shot it off. But 2, because I'm going to prolong this for even longer than you'd think.
Yeah, and I think what's a great departure from the game is that in the game that line is delivered, we get the smack and we cut to Ellie riding through the snow, I believe, if I remember rightly, in pursuit of everything. And instead, in this one, we get it cutting to Owen, we get it cutting to Nora, and we get it cutting to Joel. Joel is accepting of it. He knows what's coming. But Nora and Owen look horrified, because I think it's just dawned on them what is going to happen. They're going to witness their friend, who has been grieving for 5 years now, beat to death an old man. Like, it's just the fact of it. And I think it's such a choice to illustrate that and to show that they're not all on the same page. There's complexity to this, but they're still going along with it. Because, like Abby has said, there are just some things that everyone agrees are just fucking wrong. And I think
they're a tight crew, right? Like,
they are.
They're the sole remaining Fireflies from the assault that Joel did on that hospital. They are the only people left. They only have each other, is like one way of looking at it. So of course they're going to let Abby do what Abby wants to do. But I like that as we get Ellie arriving at the cabin, we can hear Owen trying to get Abby to stop, as she
Yeah.
again harkens back to season 1 with Ellie and David punching him non-stop over and over. She cannot stop. And
It
and I,
harkens back to episode 1 of this season with the sparring. Like,
Yeah.
Ellie, when is in a violent situation, is you can't negotiate, like, with her mind. Like, she's not there, she's not
Mhm.
present. She dissociates, and she goes somewhere completely else, much like how Joel sort of dissociated when he was protecting. This is why love as a protective thing is such a, like, a big theme in this whole show, because it's dangerous. And yeah,
Mhm.
Owen begging almost to, like, trying to get through was tough. I think for me though, the most brutal thing was just that the club had broken at some point and she's gone to fists and it's just screaming cathartically. But I think also, like, she's enraged because she's not getting the satisfaction out of this that she needs. Like, you can hear
Yeah.
that in her voice. And I again, I can't compliment the acting that's going on here more, because from Caitlin Dever, who is portraying this, it's phenomenal. Like, you can hear the grief, the rage, everything. In Owen, you can almost see in Owen's face as he's, like, doing it. It's almost like he's witnessing someone just their soul leaving their body. Like,
Yeah.
it's almost like seeing the death of his friend in slow mo, because she's a shell of who that's not Abby there. That's
Mhm.
grief, like, manifest. That's not Abby. And it's all portrayed on these, like, people's faces. Like, Spencer Lord does such a good and subtle job here. It's for me, that was the point where I said to you before, I was just like, when I knew everything that was coming on, I got teary. When I saw Joel for the first time, I, like, got really upset. But when I heard, like, this was what set me off. And I was like, gosh, this is tough.
Yeah. Yeah, the choice to have her punch with her hands, right? She has guns, knives, golf clubs, a lot at her disposal that she could use. But there is something so personal about punching with your hands, right? You're hurting yourself too. Her hands are looking messed up, tore up.
Yeah.
But she can't help it. It's almost like she's like, "Oh, this isn't giving me what I need. Screw these weapons. I'm going to use my hands. Like, I'm going to get in there, you know?" And
Yeah.
it's just not enough to quell the grief that and the rage that she feels. And in walks Ellie and immediately tries to fire. Manny stops her, and good on Ellie. She's ready for this. She slices him with her knife in the face.
Mhm.
Manny is not happy. Not
Yeah.
happy at all. They wrestle her to the ground, but they say, "Oh, we're not going to hurt her. You know, we already agreed. No outsider, no one other than Joel is going to get hurt." I think the scene that hurts me the most when I think about it, well, there's a couple, but the moment that hurts me the most is Ellie yelling at Joel to get up.
No!
Joel! 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 Joel, get up! Joel, get up! Joel, fucking get up! Joel, get up.
End it.
Joel, get up. Please. Please get up.
Get up. Because it reminds me of when they're in the hospital and he's, at the university, and he gets stabbed, and she's like, "Get up, Joel, get up!" Right, like really not bullying him, but pushing him to move. And he moves his little finger just a little bit, and he lifts his head just a little bit. And you're like, "Oh my God, this guy is so close to death, like on the brink of death." And he is trying for Ellie. He will do anything for her. It broke me. It is so brutal watching that.
Yeah. That's what made me start full on sobbing. It was just
It's that little finger.
You saw just that little thing, and almost like a little push, just almost like he tried. He really did. Like, his head just gets raised from the ground ever so slightly, and it's not just like she shouts it, she demands it, and then she pleads. Like she just says, like at the end, like, get up, please, and tries and just can't. And they're saying end it, and she then
Yeah.
stabs him through the neck. Ooh, this is again
Yeah.
different in the game. It's one final blow to the head that is witnessed in much the same way. There is the high pitched tone. Everything kind of goes a bit to silence, which kind of like masks a lot of the screaming. So that again, very faithful and very evocative of the game there as well. But it was the begging from Ellie as well, like the please don't do it, please stop, just the same way that Ashley Johnson does. And it's not delivered in the same way. Like it's different enough that really Bella puts a stamp on it, which is absolutely necessary. But there's something about seeing a person on film plead like this that a video game can't capture. As great as mocap is and as great as the animations are, there's something about this. Like you see so much pain behind Bella's face. I've been throwing a lot of flowers towards Caitlin Dever for the performance here, but Bella Ramsey just comes up and is just like, well, let me show you whose house this is. It's phenomenal.
It's really awful. And then to be able to flip that switch and just immediately, I'm gonna kill you, you're all gonna die, you're all gonna fucking die. Like it's rage. And again, like they do it in the after the episode, they kind of they explicitly say that the parallel storylines thing, but like I will once again say you cannot hate the character of Abby if you don't also hate Ellie. Like they are so similar. The amount of rage that is in Ellie, we literally just witnessed in Abby. And unfortunately for Abby, she doesn't really know that she is killing someone who is like a father to another person and kind of continuing on this cycle of violence, but and revenge. But yeah, it's so just rage, just all pure rage. And Manny, of course, wanting to get his licks in, gives Ellie a swift kick right in the ribs before they all walk out. And Ellie just, the crawl, oh my God. Again, like you said, like a difference from the video game of just seeing Bella Ramsey just crawl and lay next to Joel, lace their fingers together. Again, like the time at the university when Joel's sick and Ellie lays with him. And to see, I mean, we all know like Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal are very close, like, you know, very well publicized that they are just like extremely tight. And that, of course, was on my mind as well, watching the scene. But the way that Ellie just rests her face on Joel's face, it was so hard to watch because it is like the brutality of his death and the fact that, I mean, I would assume at this point, Ellie's just like, I'm done too, you know, like that's it. At least if I'm going to go, we'll go together. I get that's at least what I interpreted it to be. And then the crane shot. Oh my God, the whole thing, Stuart, like obviously a little different than the video game, but like impactful. We're feeling what we're supposed to be feeling, which is the point, right?
Yeah. We're certainly feeling what we're supposed to be feeling, which is numb. I think for me, the thing that hits most here is that Ellie explains earlier in the episode, her shit with Joel is complicated, but they are them. Like, she's still her, he's still him. And in that weird, messed up, complicated relationship, they have a bond unlike anything else. They get each other. They may have strife, they may have things that have come between them, but they still have this bond that is unlike any bond that I think anyone in Jackson can really understand. And Ellie's fear in season 1 is that she's going to end up alone. And she's lost that. Like she's alone right now.
Mhm.
And I think it's a great departure from the games because to see the way in which Ellie crawls and has to be close to Joel because it's the last thing that she really can cling to is just this is why we adapt stuff. I think we say this every time that we come to a point where it's like just so well done. I think we have to remind ourselves that this is why we adapt stuff. This is why we turn the dials up on certain things and the dials down on others. And I'm so affected by this. Even now, I feel myself getting a bit emotional because it's just so sad. And but I'm so thankful that it is because it's making us feel, like you said, we're feeling the right things. But that crane shot can just get out. It was just so unnecessary. It's
really
such
good.
flair to the scene. And
Yeah.
also hearing that they got it in just for this one single shot as well. I was just like, well, that's just a touch of budget.
And on top of that, Stuart, this show, they're like, you think you've hurt now? Nah. We're gonna play Through the Valley by Ashley fucking Johnson. Just kill you. If at any point that you're still like okay, you're still all right, you're still okay going right now. No, this is where the okayness stops. This is where you die because Ashley Johnson is singing Through the Valley, and it is heartbreaking. It's awful. And of course we're getting a montage of like Jackson is decimated, there are buildings on fire, piles of infected everywhere. Tommy and Maria kind of finding one another, and they both are, a little worse for wear, but not infected. We see a person that was bit that hands a gun to someone else to shoot them.
Yeah.
Brutal. And then as if and my I consume television as someone who, knowing I'm going to podcast about it, you can't help it. Like you think about the meta of things a lot. When I saw Ellie and Jesse on horseback and then Dina's on the other horse and they are dragging Joel's body behind them, wrapped up in like a white towel blanket, whatever. My first thought was, gosh, if there was any doubt of him actually being dead, the show is like, nah, he dead. Like he dead. Like it's not, they didn't even put the body on the back of Dina's horse, they're literally dragging his body through the snow. Like that's how dead he is. They're not going to find a dumpster to shove him under, like, no, he is dead 1000%. There's no doubt about it. Cause that was the only reason I could think as to why they would drag Joel's body instead of just putting it on the back of Dina's horse. Like Jesse and Ellie are on one horse. Why can't we put, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't know why I got so fixated on this. And probably because it was so hard. Like, I'm like, oh my God, he just died. And like, now we're dragging his body behind us. Like it's brutal. And not to mention, Stuart, we see Jesse arrive at the cabin as we see the Salt Lake City crew like exiting,
it's a really
and kind
wide
of leaving,
shot,
right? Beautiful, by the way. But we don't see is Dina waking up, Dina and Ellie seeing each other for the first time, Dina seeing what happened to Joel. We don't see any of that. So I want to know from you, what did you think about the fact that we didn't get to see those particular moments that were coming in after the fact?
I think it's necessary to keep the word that I want to say is momentum, but it's not really a thing of like keeping like an inertia going to it, but just keeping the vibe. Because I think if we like had a scene where obviously like they're waking Dina up and Dina reacts, I think that's just, again, it's, I think, an unnecessary twisting of the knife. I think these are things that we are certainly going to get to in terms of like explanations, maybe explorations of like their reactions. So yeah, I'm not lost because we didn't get that. The body dragging, I think, was such a, like you said, a great way of showing the meta of just, There are no dumpsters. We're not getting around it this way. I think also just there is, again, just the very thoughtfulness is the whole setup of it all, in that tied to Jesse's horse, for one thing. Like, Jesse's the one that is like fully capable, I guess, here to like handle things. And yet Dina is the one that has been awoken from like an induced like kind of sleep or unconsciousness at the hands of the drugs, is groggy, looks it while riding the horse back, and yet Ellie is the one that has Jesse holding on to her, because she needs it the most, I think, in this whole situation.
Well,
I think
yeah,
the
because
choice-
not only is she injured, right? Like a huge kick to the ribs, being held against her will, right? Like actually injured. But yeah, Jesse, it makes so much sense because Jesse has to be the one that tied Joel up, that wrapped him up. You know what I mean? Jesse is the take charge guy. He's the guy in charge, and he's the most senior member of this small group. And Dina and Ellie are not going to be in the state of mind to be able to do that.
No, not at all. And yeah, the way in which Ella just turns and is just fixated on it as well, like it's just grief, loss, it's everything all in one.
I think it's denial too. Like,
to know,
let me
yeah,
just
like
check
just
to make sure
checking.
that he's actually still dead. Like that is a real thing that happened.
Just like maybe there is a chance. Maybe I see like a twitch or something, and maybe he's in there. Maybe he's not dead. And it's almost like that. I think that look, rather than the body bag itself, is the confirmation more than anything else. But yeah, as I said to you in a Discord message to you and your husband, Will, I was just like, Ashley Johnson can just fuck all the way off. This cover was they purposely went back and recorded more of it, because originally this was the track that played during the teaser for the second game. So it's very kind of like familiar to fans. But they were like, yeah, let's get another version for it. And Ashley Johnson is a superstar. For those who maybe just are checking in just for maybe this one episode, Ashley Johnson, voice actress for Ellie in the games. So that connection again is just, it's great to like have all these bits come together and for it to pay homage to what's come before, not only in just portraying some of these scenes so well, but also kind of really giving the cast and the writers and the people involved some flowers and in the whole situation as well. This was hands down one of the toughest hours of television I've ever watched in my life. And I've done so 3 times in the last day.
2 was plenty for me. I could not have done a third. 2 was enough. It's like there's a specific episode of Succession that like I could not watch. I watched every episode like a lot of times, and that one I was like, I cannot do another one. Is tough.
Yeah, it I'm a sucker for these things. So I've rewatched that episode that you're referring to, and
Mark Mylod yet again. Incredible director.
I will rewatch this one several times, I'm sure, as well. Because I like media that makes me feel things. Doesn't necessarily always have to be happy. Like, I like things that evoke
no,
emotions.
you prefer things that make you feel devastated.
I do. I feel like getting someone to feel happiness is easier than it is to devastate people. I think that devastating people is because it's showing that you have effectively made someone fall in love with a character, and to do so for a character like Joel, who has done so much wrong but has also done so much right as well. To have a morally grey character that I am devastated to lose, and to have it in the manner that it happens in, is tough. And yet to make me feel not complete and utter hatred towards the person who killed him, it's a masterclass in writing, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Oh, so what were your thoughts generally, Jess? Like, this obviously is setting up, this is the inciting incident for season 2. I think we've got theories about what's going to happen, but where we stand right now, like, how do you feel about how everything is framed?
I mean, I think it was incredible. I'm really interested to see what they do with Abby going forward in terms of what we learn about her. I think it's really important, especially considering we know the amount of hatred that was thrown to both Abby, the character in the video game, and Laura Bailey, who voiced the character in the game. You need to dimensionalize. Not that they didn't already. They did a great job already of dimensionalizing Abby, but I think you need to do even more work now that Joel is gone and Ellie is on this kind of revenge tour. It was great. I mean, it was heartbreaking. It was devastating. It was pretty much everything I expected it to be and more, because again, I cannot express to you, it wasn't even the Joel stuff and knowing where we were heading with the Joel stuff that initially put me in that, my heart is in my throat, my stomach is out my butt. I don't know. Body parts are where they shouldn't be. It was the fall of Jackson that got me first, because I wasn't expecting to feel that way about Jackson. And I just love it so much, and I thought that combining all of these terrors into one episode, and let's face it, only an hour. Like, this episode could have been an hour and a half, could have been 2 hours. Like, they really didn't waste any time. And it was incredible. I mean, it's incredible. It's devastating. The acting from everyone was so good. Even like the smaller parts, like the Salt Lake crew, right? Like, even their reactions to Abby and to Joel and to all of those characters were so good. I'm really excited to see what we have going forward. Obviously, this is not a spoiler to say you will see Pedro Pascal again. We all know. We've all seen the trailers. Like, we're going to have some flashbacks. If you think they're going to be like, okay, see you later, Pedro, never again.
Yeah, we've
talk.
seen in the trailers that there are certainly scenes in environments that have not matched Jackson thus far. And, well, we certainly know that they're not going to happen chronologically in the future of Joel's timeline. So there almost certainly will be some flashbacks. So we are not free of Pedro just yet.
Nor would we want to be.
Thankfully. Him and his slutty little knee are going to be sticking around for
They blew off his slutty little knee, Stuart. It's gone. Was that the slutty one? Which one was the slutty one?
I imagine they're both quite slutty.
He loves showing up in like to events in like shorts and like boots and it's literally just knee. You don't see calf, ankle, nothing, just knee. It's beautiful. I love it.
He knows what
he's doing.
Wants.
Yeah.
Gosh. So I think that brings us probably to the end of this spoiler-free discussion of this week's episode. So if you are heading out at this stage, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, or dropping us a comment. And all of that stuff really does help us out. And we really do want to hear what you think, as it helps us out massively. So drop any feedback to lookforlightpodcast@gmail.com. But if you're still here and you're looking to dig a little deeper into what's coming up, this is where we're going to get into the story with the full context, including details from the games and what we know lies ahead. So spoilers here on out. Right, spoiler time. I think for me, I have to address this immediately. I know we've got some notes down. I'm skipping straight to point 3 that I added while we were doing this. At 6 minutes 27 on the episode, when Jesse is waking up Ellie, what do we get a shot of? The freaking guitar.
So we're getting that. We're getting the flashback scene.
We're getting the flashback scene. Yeah, we're getting the resolution. And this is a great way of showing this, because last we saw this, Joel had taken it to get restrung. He'd restrung it and was playing it as Ellie stormed past him. And this is a great way of illustrating that maybe they patched things up. I think there are a lot of hints with the way in which Ellie was talking about Joel.
Yes.
The fact that like she had come to that kind of resolution, that it's likely happened. I think every game player knows that we're getting swerved and that it's to subvert our expectations. But this is just, I think, a great way of establishing, settle down. We're not veering off the story that much.
Yeah, even in the Last of Us official podcast, they were definitely dancing around it. It's we all know we're gonna get that scene. Thankfully, I think we do need that scene. We're gonna get some other, Joel flashbacks. Obviously, we know we're confirmed. We're getting dinosaurs. Yeah, so that will be really interesting. Because I mean, it's gonna be heartbreaking, but in a good way this time at least. Like they didn't go out with Ellie hating Joel's guts and like having had a
No.
big argument be the last interaction they had, you know?
Yeah. Which it settles so many fears that perhaps they might, I don't know, maybe tweak it, maybe like kind of shape the theme or anything like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've made a note of Ellie's grief getting overshadowed by Jackson's grief.
Yeah.
This is a great point, I think.
This is something I thought of for a number of reasons. One being The Leftovers. There is a character from The Leftovers who loses her mother. I want to say either the same day or the day before, kind of 2% of the world's population just disappears. And it's something I also thought of when it came to COVID and like how anyone who lost someone during COVID, especially at the very beginning, it almost felt like they couldn't grieve because there was so much other grieving, this mass grieving happening, and that it overshadowed any one individual's grief. And that it was something I thought of almost instantly of, now that we have what happened with Jackson be simultaneous to what happened to Joel, any grief that Ellie feels for Joel, it is more community based than localized to her. And Jackson is going to be so, kind of focused on rebuilding and grieving the people they lost in the attack on Jackson, that's going to really interrupt any sort of grieving that Tommy, that Ellie, that Maria, Dina, all those people are doing for Joel. And yeah, it was just something I was sitting with. I don't know that I have much to say beyond I'm interested to see the impact, because very different from the video game where we don't have this attack on Jackson. And like, you can have the entire community come together for Joel, right? Like we literally see outside of Joel's house, like all of this stuff from the entire community after his death. So I'm really intrigued to see kind of the fallout, because of they're not going back to a healthy, happy Jackson and giving them bad news. They're going back to a town that has been decimated by a really crazy event.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of wild to see how it does frame everything that, like, in terms of like the grief. I think as well there is the whole like the practicality of like funerals, like, because in the game we cut from that and then we get the finality of Joel's death by seeing a gravestone. So obviously like a funeral or something has happened off screen, or whether they have a funeral or like a service, or I imagine they would have some sort of like event to commemorate his life. But in this, is Joel going to be afforded that? There were many that have died. Like we saw so many people die just getting Maria off the roof, for crying out loud. Like we saw so many getting bit. And so that, it kind of just spreads their grief thin almost.
Exactly. There's no
how
time.
Much can you express?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no time to individually grieve a single person because you are too busy grieving the mass of people that you've lost. And yeah, it hurt a little bit more. And this is not me criticizing the show's decision. I think it's great and it's really interesting, and it's an interesting diversion from the game, because that's not how it played out. And so to imagine trying to grieve a single person while the rest of the population is grieving something entirely differently, I imagine would feel pretty isolating. So yeah. And then of course, we have Dina being the one who has information, right? Like I think in the video game, it's Tommy is trying to find out who these people are, what their names are, where they're from, on and on and on.
Well, it's Ellie that pushes it. So Tommy mentions WLF, and so like she kind of puts it together that it's Washington Liberation Front, and she's the one that's pushing Tommy, like going, Washington Liberation Front, why are we not going after them? Whereas again, like this dynamic that you're saying is that it's going to be Ellie and Dina, and Dina's the one that comes with the information, and so they're almost like egging each other on, perhaps, in doing this.
And it helps with Dina's motivation, I think, because in the game, while it's like romantic to think like, oh, Dina loves Ellie so much that she'll go off on this like epic adventure to get vengeance. It is way more personal when you have Dina being there, being duped, being put unconscious and missing all of the stuff that happened. It's way more personal. So I think it works better in terms of getting Ellie and Dina on the journey together. And yeah, having her have that information is really interesting. And what they're gonna do with Tommy, I'm really intrigued to see, because he leaves in the video game.
Yeah, this sets up like not only like we said that the in the like in last season we were like, well, having a kid, this makes Tommy's decision to leave reckless, kind of mental, really. And yet now it's also in the fallout of an attack on Jackson where they're at their most vulnerable. Like, how could Maria ever forgive him for that? Makes me think that maybe, I don't know. I want to say that maybe Tommy doesn't go, but like he has to. Like,
as a kid, like it's so hard. How do you? Maybe they're able to maybe they'll have him do it because it's like, oh, I made the call and then I tried to get him and it's all my fault, and I wasn't out there to save him, and maybe they could twist it that way. It's going to be a tough needle to thread for sure.
Yeah, completely. I think as well, a departure from the game, we don't get Ellie and Dina spending the time in the Weave Den, which means that at the moment, like, they shared a kiss, but things like Ellie, at least in the morning, is like explaining away of like, oh, she was just high, she didn't mean it, which means that they don't have an establishment of them having a relationship, which again makes it more revenge driven than it does like romance driven. I wonder if we're going to get that on the road. Certainly in the trailers, we've seen the serenading scene with the guitar. So I think that there is possibly, it is the journey where they form that bonds together, which again, I think brings an interesting dynamic to their relationship, because maybe they were only brought together by this shared drive to pursue Abby, which then, if we like refer to the game, leads to the eventual downfall of their relationship, not only being on Ellie for her pursuit of the grief, but perhaps it brings into questions of just, well, maybe it's because we're not on this journey together. Maybe we were never meant to be, kind of thing. And I think that could drive home some really kind of like tough emotional kind of points later on down the line. I think they're setting themselves up really well to have a lot of toy blocks to play with here for stuff that could be set up.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be really fascinating to see. And I think so far, Stuart, I could say that we both are in agreement that like any changes they've made in terms of adaptation, I think I'm thumbs up so far. Like there really hasn't been anything where I've been immediately, my gut has been like, what? No. Like obviously I miss the Dina and Ellie in Eugene's Weed Haven. It's a really important scene. I think they could shift it. They could have a similar scene in a different location once they're on the road. Like they could do something like that if they're going to, obviously we're going to see the development of Ellie and Dina's relationship. So we're going to get some nice scenes like that. I think in order to make this work, make the logistics work of having to have Tommy back at Jackson, changing up who's on patrol with whom, like they had to do it. It sucks. It is what it is. I don't mind it that much. And I think it makes more sense for the television show to zig instead of zag.
Yeah. And then we get our first kind of mention of Isaac. Apparently he's got a code. I don't know if I believe this. When he was gonna, shoot Yara and Lev, like what the hell?
Exactly. Yeah, defenseless. Oh, we don't hurt the defense. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Lies.
Yeah. But I think that was a great setup for Owen, because when the code is mentioned, we get that cutaway to Owen, and it's again a slow seeding of this idea of maybe Owen is seeing that, well, this code isn't being applied by Abby here. It's not being applied by the not the Fireflies, the WLF back in Seattle in pursuit of the scars, and so sets Owen off on this journey of everything. Like, and again, this is a great way of showing that it's not just Abby that is affected by everything that happens here with Joel. The whole crew is affected by this. Like Mel harbors a deep-seated kind of like aversion to Abby for the behavior that she witnesses. Nora is kind of, I think, perturbed by it a bit. Manny less so. Manny's more of like, I think, akin to Abby, which is why they're probably besties in this whole scenario. But Owen is profoundly affected by it. Changes his whole worldview, really, or it realigns his worldview back to what they were when he joined the Fireflies. So yeah, I was really thankful that we kind of got that set up. And it's kind of strange that Isaac's getting a mention and sounds like quite a virtuous leader here, and we know him to be anything but when we do meet him. I can't wait to meet Isaac. That's going to be something else. Jeffrey Wright's going to knock it out of the park. I just know.
So I know originally we had thought that, well, I don't know that I would even say we thought. I know there was speculation that episode 3 would be more of the Eugene Isaac flashbacky sort of thing. And I kind of pushed back against that, saying, I don't know, with the death of Joel, I don't imagine we're going to like then immediately leave those characters. It seems based on the previews for next week that we are going to be staying with the Jackson crew for now. Is that how you read that as well?
Yeah, I did. I think you were right in your kind of hunch that I think we should linger in Jackson a bit more and deal with the fallout of everything. I think possibly, I mean, it's very rare that the trailer will show you the whole episode. But I think at least midway we're going to get them onto the journey, and we're going to deal with them kind of maybe arriving in Seattle and kind of like establishing some things that are being set up there. But I certainly don't think. Oh, I don't know, because this is the thing. Like we've had speculation that there is a Eugene-centric episode akin to the Bill and Frank. I assumed it would be episode 3 because the same director is directing episode 3 this time round. It's Peter Horn, episode 3 of season 2, I believe. So I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong. Maybe they could splice it up. Have maybe a bit of flashbacks to Jackson. Maybe all the scenes in Jackson are them talking about things and maybe jumping back and forth. Maybe we're going to play around with the time a little bit here. I really don't know. And I think this is why I'm so excited for the rest of the season, is because I don't know. Like I know.
We
we
knew what episodes 1 and 2 would kind of contain at least, but now we're more in the like, okay, where are we going from here? Because the Isaac and Eugene stuff could kind of be anywhere. And yeah, it's really exciting. I'm really excited to get the Eugene stuff specifically. I think mostly because I loved the Bill and Frank stuff so much from season 1, and knowing that was a diversion or more of an expansion on what the video game gave us, that I'm excited to see what they could do with Eugene. And of course, my fave, Catherine O'Hara, who plays Gail. There's a lot of potential there, and I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with it.
I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure the episode 2 teaser had Catherine O'Hara in it because they were talking about the moth symbology. Maybe I'm confusing this with the episode 3 teaser that's coming up. Maybe it's addressed in that. But there's certainly a scene where she's talking to Joel in a cafe. She's reading a book and they're talking about the symbology of the moth, and she says it was death. And him being a bit shocked. And I was like, oh, I was expecting that in this one. Like I thought that maybe they cut it, maybe they've kind of shifted it somewhere else. But yeah, that has to come about. And I would imagine so if it did, that it would come about from the Eugene episode, perhaps. Again, maybe lending it to this whole idea that everything is kind of jumping here, there, and everywhere. I don't know what to predict. And I feel so out of control, but also so alive because I can watch the show like an actual fan. Like I'm rather obsessing over it and knowing exactly what to expect. I don't think there was really a beat of this episode that we hadn't anticipated at all. We just didn't anticipate the severity of it. Perhaps.
I guess I didn't expect the Jackson stuff to be happening like this episode simultaneously. Maybe I just didn't think about it enough to like, duh, of course they're going to do that. But like, I just wasn't expecting that all to take place at the same time. Because, I don't know, it's a lot. Loved it.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
I will say as well, there was a promo shot that we went through in the trailers and speculation pod that we did, and it's the shot of the Salt Lake crew walking away. It's the final shot of them that we get in this episode, and we were like, oh, that's them finishing the journey towards Jackson. And then really you look at it and you're like, oh, Abby does look quite beaten up. and it's not her blood, it's Joel's blood. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh gosh, they showed us that the whole time, because we even remarked about how she looked determined, she looked focused, and everyone else looked so tired,
Yeah.
and like so not on board with her, and now we know why.
Yeah, it's pretty
Some of the stuff in
funny.
hindsight is phenomenal. I love it. I love like picking that up and just seeing what they've been bold enough to tease us with,
Yeah.
knowing full well that we can't predict that 100%, but we do our best.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, is there anything else you want to cover, Jess? It's been a bit of a monster one, this.
I'm ready to decompress. I'm tired. I'm tired, just like the Salt Lake crew. I'm exhausted. I'm emotionally spent.
Yeah, I think if you are listening, go look after yourself, make yourself a cup of tea,
Yeah,
settle
watch
in,
something
and just
funny.
have a breather. Yeah, watch something funny. Watch Schitt's Creek. If you don't know, we cover Schitt's Creek. We have a podcast called Talking Shit, and it's so much nicer vibes over there.
It really is. It's very pleasant.
Yeah, really is. But so yeah, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, all of those usual things that people say for everything. It really does help us out. But before we fully wrap things up, despite this being quite brutal, shall we try and channel some Will Livingston?
I'm so curious to see what you have for me today.
What do you call it when your revenge plan goes exactly right on the first go?
Oh, it's something about like a par, or there has to be. Is it golf related?
It is. It's a Joel in one.
You're a monster.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye bye.